Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi horror movie called Alien 3. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens as a US Marine spacecraft heads to Earth after a mission on a foreign planet. The crew is frozen in hypersleep in special chambers and doesn't realize that they have accidentally brought on an alien egg in the ship. Soon, the stowaway egg hatches and causes an electrical fire. The newly born alien then attaches itself to one of the crew members right before the ship's system sends all sleeping chambers into an escape pod and ejects it into outer space. The pod soon arrives at the nearest planet called Fiorina 161, an all-male prison colony populated by the most dangerous criminals and owned by the same company behind the ship. Soon afterwards, the inmates find the pod and take the only surviving passenger, Lieutenant Ellen Ripley, to the infirmary. The planet's chief medical officer, Dr. Clemens, takes care of her and gives her an injection to ease the pain. When Ripley regains consciousness, he tells her that she's the only survivor from the crash. Meanwhile, the inmates use a crane to take the destroyed ship into a building. Their dog Spike wanders inside and begins barking when he sees the alien, which has gone unnoticed by the locals. Afterwards, the colony's warden, Andrews, announces to the prisoners that they now have a woman in the building. Some of the men point out this will bring trouble, but Andrews assures them that he's already talked to the company and asked for a rescue ship. Ripley is left under the care of Clemens with strict orders of not leaving the infirmary until the ship comes for her. Once Ripley feels better, she demands to see the wreckage, so Clemens takes her there while explaining how each passenger died. He says that the young passenger girl died in her sleep, but Ripley notices a scorching mark on the side of her sleeping chamber, remembering the aliens they encountered during their mission. Ripley gets suspicious and asks to see the girl's body. Next, they go to the morgue, where Ripley begins inspecting the body. She then demands an autopsy under the excuse of a possible infection. Although reluctant, Clemens opens the body up and shows her that the only possible cause for the girl's death was drowning. At that moment, Andrews comes in and scolds Ripley for leaving the infirmary, but she says that the bodies could be carrying infections and demands them to be burned. Moments later, the bodies from the ship are cremated, and an inmate named Dylan offers a very heartfelt eulogy. In another room, Spike starts convulsing and suddenly explodes as an alien comes out of his body. Afterward, Ripley washes up and shaves her head as per prison policy. She later asks Clemens how he ended up being a doctor and if he committed a crime, because he also has a barcode on his skin like the inmates. However, he dodges the question and in return asks about the real reason for the autopsy. To distract him, Ripley flirts with him and they end up having intercourse. In the meantime, a mechanic working in a ventilation tunnel is ambushed by the alien, a giant creature with the body of a dog and an elongated head. It attacks by throwing acid at his face, causing the mechanic to stumble back into a gigantic fan that immediately shreds him to pieces. Soon, Clemens is called to investigate the remains of the mechanic and finds a burn mark like the one Ripley saw in the hypersleep pod. Wanting answers, he goes looking for Ripley and finds her searching the ship's wreckage for the flight recorder. When he tells her about the mechanic, she begins to suspect that there's an alien around. Clemens demands to hear the complete story, but Ripley first wants to recover the remains of the android who was on the ship with her. The doctor then directs her towards the garbage dump, but he can't escort her because he has a meeting with Andrews. Meanwhile, inmates Boggs, Rains, and Golick are on a survey assignment that has them placing candles to measure various tunnels and rooms in the building. However, some candles in the distance keep getting blown out. Assuming it's the wind, Rains goes to relight them, only to find the now fully grown alien, which begins biting him. Boggs and Golick hear screaming sounds and run to check on their friend, but as soon as they see the creature, they run back to the entrance. Suddenly, Boggs is attacked from above by the alien, which rips out his throat. The blood sprays on Golick, who after a moment of frozen shock, runs away in panic. Elsewhere, Ripley searches the garbage dump and eventually finds the android's remains. When she tries to leave, she's cornered by 3 rowdy prisoners. They try to have their way with her, with one of them even putting on his hump goggles, but Dylan suddenly appears and beats the hell out of them with a steel bar. Afterward, Ripley connects what's left of the android to a power supply and reactivates him. Using the android's system, she accesses the ship's flight recorder and learns that a fire caused their ejection. She also gets to know that an alien traveled with them them when they escaped the planet. This information has been shared with the network, so the company knows about it. The android is in great pain and asks for mercy, so Ripley permanently disconnects him. At that moment, Gallic is dragged into the infirmary as he swears that he didn't kill anyone, a dragon did. Andrews and the others dismiss him as insane, but Dylan defends him, saying that Gallic has never been a liar. Later, they have a meeting at Andrews' office, and Ripley shares everything she knows about the aliens. Unfortunately, he reveals that aside from some knives and fire axes, there are no weapons in the prison. He also confines her to the infirmary until the rescue ship arrives, as he still doesn't believe her story. Later, in the infirmary, Ripley isn't feeling well, so Clemens gives her another injection. To distract her, he finally admits that he used to be a prisoner. He was sentenced after a drug addiction caused him to take a bad medical decision, which led to several deaths. When the prison was turned into a lead shielding factory and the population was reduced, Clemens decided to stay with the inmates, knowing no one else would hire him as a doctor ever again. As the two are engaged in conversation, the alien suddenly appears and kills Clemens in seconds. It then approaches Ripley and corners her against a wall, but after taking a closer look, the alien steps back. It surprisingly leaves through the ceiling, taking Clemens' body with it. A panicked Ripley then rushes to the mess hall and informs Andrews that the alien is here. He still doesn't believe her and orders her to get back to the infirmary, but moments later, Andrews is snatched from above by the alien, leaving the vent dripping with blood. In the aftermath of this incident, the prisoners gather in the assembly area to argue over who should take over as the leader, but Ripley interrupts them and reveals everything she knows about the aliens, although this one moves a bit differently. A foul-mouthed, argumentative inmate named Morse gets furious and blames her for bringing the alien here, but Dylan urges everyone to shut up. After this, Ripley checks the floor plan and notices a large system of tunnels, plus a toxic waste containment unit that can be completely sealed off. There are also barrels of highly combustible material behind a thick steel door, so they decide to use that material to burn the alien out of the tunnels and force it into the containment unit to trap it indefinitely. Soon, the inmates start making preparations by mopping the tunnel with the fuel. One of the inmates climbs a ladder and accidentally drops his flare, but quickly retrieves it before it can cause an accident. Unfortunately, this distraction allows the alien to attack him by surprise. The flare then falls and ignites the fuel, causing a huge explosion that kills many prisoners. Ripley and Dylan save as many people as they can, and someone eventually manages to start the sprinklers, but although the fire is gone now, the group is severely smaller. Afterward, Ripley begins feeling unwell, so she goes back to the wrecked ship to use the biomedical scanner. One of the inmates, Aaron, helps her handle the machine, and after a quick scan, they're shocked to discover that Ripley was impregnated by the alien. This explains why the alien didn't attack her, as it's protecting its own offspring. A worried Ripley then asks Aaron to send a message to the company, stating that the whole base has gone toxic and they should stay away. Aaron is confused because the rescue ship is their only hope, so Ripley explains that the company will take the alien to Earth to make weapons. Unfortunately, Aaron still refuses to comply, so she decides to search for the alien on her own. After a while, Aaron receives a message from the rescue ship saying they'll arrive in 2 hours and that the highest priority is to keep Ripley quarantined. Elsewhere in a tunnel, Ripley attacks a rusty pipe, mistaking it for the alien's head. The noise alerts the beast, and it appears right behind her. The scene abruptly shifts to Dylan, who is startled by the sudden appearance of Ripley. She explains that she came face to face with the alien, but it didn't attack her because of her pregnancy. She also realizes that the shape she saw on the scan is a queen, meaning her alien baby can make thousands more. Ripley then asks Dylan to eliminate her, since she won't survive the birth anyway. The inmate initially obliges, but he changes his mind at the last second, pointing out that her immunity can be used to their advantage. Ripley agrees to fight, but makes him promise he'll end things after they defeat the alien. In the next scene, Ripley gathers the inmates and explains the urgency of the situation. She asserts that it's now or never, and the company won't be coming to their rescue. Upon hearing this, everyone is riled up, and they agree to fight for their lives. Ripley then divides the inmates into 2 groups. The first will serve as bait and guide the alien to the corridors of the lead works. The rest will close off all the entrances until the beast is forced into the mold. But while everyone gets the doors and switches ready, Aaron quietly sneaks away. Later, Dylan explains to Ripley that the structure is old and hasn't been used for years, so some parts may not work. This means they have only one chance to do this right. Meanwhile, the alien shows up and brutally finishes off one of the inmates. Another prisoner sees this and gets the creature's attention to trigger the chase as they run through the corridors. The others attempt to close the doors to force the alien into the right path. However, the maze-like design of the area confuses everyone, and they aren't sure what doors to close. After they lose track of the creature, an inmate goes looking for it and gets its attention again with a flare. The chase restarts, and although they keep on closing doors, 2 more guys get killed. A guy panics and almost activates the piston too soon, but Ripley stops him just in time. Outside, the ship with the company workers finally lands. Aaron receives them and says that Ripley is in the furnace area. The group then makes their way inside while carrying a huge steel cage. Elsewhere, Dylan enters the tunnels and finds the alien killing another prisoner, so he drags the body away and drops him near the mold as bait. The alien then comes closer, and a prisoner activates the piston. However, the clever alien realizes it's a trap and drags the body back into the tunnels without stepping into the mold. Now they have 5 minutes to bait the alien before the plan becomes a failure. Following this, the team runs through the corridors in different directions trying to find the alien. At one point, Morse is cornered and almost destroyed, but Ripley arrives to his rescue. With a flare in her hand, she tries to provoke the alien into attacking her. However, the clever beast simply pushes her away, as it's never going to harm the offspring. Nearby, Dylan hears Ripley's screams of frustration and rushes towards her. He soon reaches the corridor where she is yelling at the alien. Dylan then drags her away as she continues to scream at the top of her lungs. This makes the alien assume that its offspring is in danger, so it rushes after the duo. After a while, they reach the containment unit, and Dylan shouts at Morse to shut the doors. The alien realizes what's happening and lunges towards the exit, but it's already too late. Now, Ripley, Dylan, and the alien are stuck in the lead manufacturing mold with only one way out, the ladder, which leads to the top of the unit. And yet, the alien doesn't attack the humans because it still wants to protect the baby. Dylan uses this advantage and urges Ripley to start climbing the ladder while promising to follow after her. But once she gets halfway up, he drops back down into the mold. The alien immediately goes after him and gouges his abdomen with its sharp fangs. Although Dylan passes away in brutal fashion, his sacrifice does not go to waste, as Ripley soon climbs on top of a pipe. Morse then pours in the hot molten lead, which drops right on top of the freakish alien. It appears that the beast has finally been eliminated, and the duo begins celebrating. But in a shocking turn of events, the alien springs out of the mold, covered in molten lead, but still alive. Now, seething with anger, it seeks to take revenge against the humans, and doesn't care if its own offspring is harmed in the process. When Ripley notices it approaching, she immediately scrambles to the pipes above her, where several chains are attached to a pulley. But in this critical moment, a brilliant idea strikes Morse's mind. He shouts at Ripley, reminding her about the sprinkler system near the pulley, and just before the alien can get to her, Ripley jumps from her pipe and grabs the chains, causing the sprinklers to be switched on. The water then falls on the alien, and the sudden cooling causes cracks all over its body, exploding it into pieces. In the aftermath of this incident, Ripley joins Morse on the platform, but they are soon surrounded by Aaron and the company employees. Among them is the android who is on the spaceship headed to Earth. His presence shocks Ripley, as she had ripped off the power supply to that android with her own hands. It is then revealed that the figure standing in front of her is not an android, but an actual human being. He is Bishop, the leading scientist for the company who developed the androids and gave them his face. Bishop then calmly asks Ripley to follow him to the rescue ship, where a surgical station has been set up. He reassures her that they will safely remove the alien from her womb and she can have her normal life back. However, Ripley is fully aware of the company's intentions, which is to euthanize her and get the alien. Thus, she quickly closes the fence between the platform she's standing on and the ledge where Bishop is. She then moves the platform away from the ledge, driving her and Morse back towards the furnace. This worries Bishop, so he pleads with her not to harm the magnificent creature growing within her. He also orders the guards to fire a warning shot at Morse's leg. Meanwhile, Aaron, who thought the company was here to help them escape, finally understands their intentions. He sees how easily they shoot Morse as if his life meant nothing to them. This enrages Aaron, so he grabs a steel wrench and whacks Bishop on the back of his head. But his actions prompt the company guards to open fire and shred his body with bullets. On the other hand, Ripley asks Morse to help her one last time, and he moves the platform right over the boiling furnace. She then goes to the edge of the platform and jumps off into the piping hot mass of molten metal. The alien growing inside her senses the danger and bursts out of her chest, but Ripley holds tightly onto it, and they both die as soon as they land in the flames. In the aftermath, the prison facility is closed down, and the sole surviving inmate, Morse, is taken away. As the credits roll, the scene shifts to the escape pod, which was bound to Earth. Ripley's Ripley's recording from her first adventure can be heard, saying that she's the last survivor. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.